My name is Idris Rashid. I like to think of myself as a futurist, a visionary, and an optimist. I follow the best people in their respective field to bring you the best and most fact-supported content. I launched the Positively Living podcast, or as I like to call it, this mini podcast, because I strongly believe that one of the best ways of coping with life's events is by living a life of positive thoughts, words, and actions. However, not many of us know how to dive into positively living, especially in the face of seemingly constantly negative events. This podcast is designed to train you how to begin doing just that. Hi, and welcome to the Positively Living podcast. As you can see, I didn't have my music this week because I am traveling. I'm in San Jose, California for an event with my other business, IMP Solutions, and I did not think to bring my laptop. So you're going to have to just deal with not having the intro music this week. Hopefully, I won't deter you too well. Now, I must warn you that I've never done anything like this before, so I'm literally making it up as we go. So please bear with me while I help you grow each week. These days we are bombarded with so much negative content. It's almost impossible to go a whole day without some form of negativity thrown in our face. For the people that we see every day, to the media, to even our own devices, there is so much negativity going around. And this seeps into our daily acts. Whenever we make the tiniest mistake, or a major one, it seems that we're constantly judged by other people, and even worse, ourselves. How do we overcome this? How do we lift ourselves up when we're constantly held down? But that's the very reason why I decided to form this podcast. See, what happened was back in 2020, I decided to start my own business, helping others learn about finance. I started part-time because I wasn't sure if it was really for me. In 2023, I left my corporate job to focus on my business full-time. I immediately felt a flow of positive thoughts and gratitude. And I was so overwhelmed, I began thinking this is something everyone should experience. You see, I was unhappy with my work life, even though I was making more than I ever had before. From dealing with unhappy clients to being hovered over by most of my managers, I was left feeling drained and uninspired. Even the people around me were experiencing my frustrations. So I felt that one of the best ways to experience true joy in this life is by helping others. And here we are today. Get back to you so I can see all of you. All right, guys, welcome to the Positive Living Podcast, second episode here. And today we're actually going to talk about happiness, or what happiness is. And let me share my screen with you so you can see who our, not guests, but who we're quoting today. I was listening to a podcast with Dr. Judith Joesph, who we will learn about today in just a minute. And she was really talking about a lot of the things that were going on since the pandemic that caused us to be unhappy. So Dr. Judith Joesph, let me brag about her just a little bit. She immigrated to the U.S. from Trinidad when she was just 4 years old. Growing up in a religious community with her father, serving as pastor, sparked her interest in exploring the interests in spirituality and science. Before she began practicing, she had an opportunity to travel to more than 30 countries where she gained insight into how mental health is approached in different cultures and religious communities. She decided to pursue psychiatry after leading trauma-focused therapy groups in South Africa with children impacted by AIDS at an orphanage in Johannesburg. This experience inspired her to work towards developing mental health treatment that is exclusive to diverse backgrounds and beliefs. Dr. Joesph here runs what's called the Manhattan Medical Institute with these other ladies here. It's all women focused. Go ladies. And what they do is they focus on research with higher functioning people. What she says is we need to throw out our idea of we need to throw out we need to throw out our idea of what happiness is. And she says that, what she found is that people's idea of happiness is not possible. Possible ideas of happiness. People believe that happiness is about receiving or achieving a point of exhaustion, or to the point of exhaustion. I'm going to stop sharing here for a minute so I can look back at you. And I got some notes here that I'm referring to. I kind of put this together on my flight to San Antonio this morning. But what she said is, people believe that happiness is about receiving or achieving to the point of exhaustion. We believe that once we get this one thing, or with one job, with one car, with one house, then we will truly be happy. What we're doing, we are actually putting off our own joy. Dr. Joseph says that happiness is not a state. It's more about moments of joy. It's more about improving the status point to point and learning how to be happier. Uh, we think of the happiness as just one great thing, like I said, that we need to attain. But the truth is, and reality is, happiness is a series of moments, or going from moments to moments. And I remember having a conversation with my parents. This was probably about, let's say about 15 years ago, maybe, when I had this big epiphany. I was on the phone with him, and I told him, I was like, I think I've discovered one of the joys in life. I think one of the joys in life is that you have to learn to appreciate the little things. Once you learn to appreciate and truly appreciate the little things, then when the big things happen, it's going to make that much more of an impact. And I kind of try to live by that since I made that discovery, because of the fact that you kind of have to appreciate what you have before you can really gain more. And what we do is that we put off our joy, we postpone our joy because of the fact we feel, well, we don't deserve it yet, or we feel it's unattainable, or we feel it's something that we have to earn, or we have to work towards. But what she's saying is there are small things that we can do every day to increase points of joy. Happiness is not a set moment in time. Like, for instance, when I get X, I'll be happier. How many times have we said that, or thought that at least? But rather, and more attainable to have the moments of joy that add up in time. And that finding joy means noticing little things. Again, it goes back to what I was saying about my epiphany. You have to recognize and appreciate the little things in life that happens. When somebody holds that door open for you, or that car lets you in, or you just happen to look into your wallet and you see that you had just enough money to get that gas that you need to get to work. Stuff that just seems insignificant to you. But when you think about it, think about the thought of not having it and how that would feel, and how much you would appreciate or not appreciate it, not having it so much. So how do you describe happiness? Let's say to a child. Well, what she was saying is, you don't have to teach children how to play. They naturally know how to do it instantly. Example, give a toddler a box, and they will use their senses to analyze that box. They'll touch it, they'll move it around, they'll put it in the mouth, try to taste it. And if the box is big enough, they even try to fit themselves into it. So for adults, we have to ask ourselves, at what point did we stop having fun? We enter this adult world and we think that fun is something that has to be put off to, like, maybe the weekend or after all the work is done. And we lose focus on our own joy as a result of that, because of the fact that we're not having a good time. We're work, 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 go, 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 do, do, do. And to be realistic, a lot of times it happens because of our schedule. We have so much going on, so much on our plates that we're so in the moment of trying to get everything done. So but she was saying that she remember a day. Oh, actually, this is for me. I remember a day or two after my 12th birthday, I decided I was too old to play with toys anymore. So what did I do? I gathered all my toys up into a box and I threw them all away. I felt that I was too old to play with toys because I was no longer a child. Now, that may be appropriate for this scenario here, but think about what that means. I was 12 years old thinking that I was pretty much an adult. I wasn't a kid anymore. I didn't need to play. And maybe the kind of playing that I evolved to at that point was not with my toys, so to speak, but maybe other kinds of playing, like with video games or games with other people. So at one point, we start prioritizing fun and play. And then when we start prioritizing it, that becomes a little too serious. Again, we get wrapped up in our day-to-day schedules on everything that we need to do in our work. And next thing you know, another year has gone by. So at one point, we start prioritizing fun, or just read that part, and that's become too serious. So what Dr. Joseph has found is that she uses this term called, I'm going to try to say it without butchering it, anhedonia. Anhedonia. Let me share my screen so we can talk about what that is. What is anhedonia? Oh, the latest? So anhedonia is the inability to experience joy or pleasure. You may feel numb or less interested in things that you once enjoyed. It's a common symptom of many mental health conditions like depression. So what she has found is this term is not typically used in vocabulary, and what she's doing with her work is she's trying to make it make it more mainstream, make it a term that's more used, because when you look at the true definition of it and what it really is, it kind of, it just tells you right here exactly what it is. It's an actual real thing. And so, for example, how are you doing today? When someone asks you that, well, our normal reaction is to answer the question according to what we think that they want to hear. Oh, I'm doing okay. I'm fine. I'm great. Instead of just really saying what's really going on. Oh, I'm sad. I'm depressed. I'm on a lower vibration. So in preschool, children are even taught how to identify what they feel and how they feel. They're given a chart with different faces on it. That means different emotions, like happy, sad, angry, etc. And in adulthood, we are trained to stop recognizing those feelings. We're trained to stop asking ourselves, how do we feel? What's going on with us right now? We're so, again, pinpointed focus on what we're doing or what we think we have to do, that we kind of take that away. And maybe we're doing ourselves a disservice by doing that. Maybe we do need to take more moments to say, how am I feeling right now? What am I feeling? Am I feeling depressed because this, and this is happening or not happening? Am I feeling sad because I lost something that was really great to me? Am I happy because, when I look around, I realize that, things really are better than what they are. And the second part to this is what's called biopsychological socialism. Now that one I can say actually a little bit easier. The model here is a framework that views health and illness as a result of interactions between biological, psychological, and social factors. Biological factors like genetics, psychological process, and medical terms. The psychological focus is thoughts, emotions, and behavior. Coping mechanisms, personality traits. The social part is like, family, fun, and social support, culture and belief, socioeconomic status. The biopsychological social model emphasizes that these factors are interconnected and can influence each other. For example, a genetic predisposition to medical conditions, biological factor, can increase the risk of developing psychological distress, psychological factor, which in turn can lead to a social isolation, which is the social factor. Now, what she was saying is, again, I'm gonna stop sharing here. So what Dr. Joesph was saying here is that all diseases, or for biopsychological, social, all diseases and symptoms have has an element. Sorry, I can't even say the word anymore. For example, like the effects of COVID-19 on the brain. I know that it's only been about 5 years since COVID happened, and we're still studying and analyzing and learning about this disease and this more and more long, quote unquote, long-term, conditions. But what we have found so far is that it does affect parts of the brain. That's why a lot of people get anxious after having it or having it. I was fortunate enough to dodge it. I said, no, I'm not doing that. I heard it might hurt, so I don't think I want to do it. So I didn't experience that, but I have heard a lot of people that said that after they had COVID, they either experienced brain fog or some sort of anxiety because of what it does to the brain. Now, there could also be a risk factor from DNA and, of course, the foods we eat that also affects that. This is more evidence in the food that we eat, which causes more inflammation. So the psychological part was, in our society, trauma is not properly getting processed, the way that it should. People kind of have a way of labeling victims of trauma as being the blame of their trauma, Dr. Joesph says. Example, the just rule, which I thought was kind of interesting, that, good things happen to good people and bad things happen to bad people. An example of that, is what I use is, a female or a lady walking across a campus late at night by themselves, and they end up getting assaulted. And when we hear about this, the first thing that comes to mind was, oh my gosh, what happened? Or maybe she did something that caused that. Or why was she walking across campus by herself late at night and escorted? And all these thoughts come to our head. But in reality is that, we think that because something bad happened to her, that obviously they did something that caused this. Another good example of that too is, when the good part, I should say, is when something good does happen to someone who truly deserves it, someone who works really hard. And when we hear these stories, of course, we're excited for them and we're happy for them and we expect it to happen. they work hard. They really put things aside to make, things happen. So of course, when something big happens, they deserve it. But what Dr. also Joseph also says, and she goes on to explain that we never really got to catch our breath since 2020. She actually used the example in the podcast that I was listening to that of her daughter, her daughter running towards the ocean, and she was saying, "No, watch out for the waves." And of course, the daughter gets hit by the waves and smacks down into the sand. And before she can even get a chance to swim back, swim back to shore or wherever, get out of the water. And what she was saying is that, we haven't really caught our breath since 2020. First we got hit with the pandemic, it came out of nowhere. And then we got hit with all the news media about police brutality and then the uprising with political news. And there was one thing after another, after another, after another. I remember, oh my gosh, I remember I would come home from work and, I would obviously watch the news, see what's going on. There was just so much stuff, just so much content. And of course, I'll go to my social media and same thing. And, for kids, particularly, they went from being in person in their present learning environment to having to go remotely. And just think about what it did to them. The people that they used to seeing every day, the interactions that they used to having every day was suddenly taken away abruptly. And they probably didn't know how to react to it because they didn't know what was going on at the time for themselves. So the isolation during lockdown is what caused trauma for a lot of people, kids and adults. Everyone was missing the social aspect of living the reality for the most part, and then the reality that kept us sane. We were so we were turning to online activities like social media to get our little fix of that interaction that we weren't getting. This was also this is also a time for more online communities. We saw an increase in binge drinking in populations that were typically protected. We saw more online shopping than ever before, all linked to the notation that if I do X, I will feel better about what's happening in the world right now. And as a result, instead of everyone experiencing Anhedonia. Now, in this capitalist culture, with the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, people are consuming. The rich wanted the money and power, and poor just wanted to keep up. As a result, we have this culture that's never really processed what's happened during the pandemic. I said I wasn't going to talk about the pandemic because of the fact that so many people just trying to move on with their lives from it. They're kind of tired of hearing about it. But what I learned, and as soon as I was reading this and going over this, was the fact of not talking about something. Or how did I put it? I wrote it down into words. It said the pandemic caused such a sense of uncertainty for basically all of us. And even now, 5 years later, we're still feeling the effects of it. But not dealing with the issue doesn't make the issue go away. And that was one of those moments that as soon as I said it, I was like, oh, wait, whoa, I think you're onto something there. Especially when we were talking about, happiness and how to be happier and trauma and what causes it. But not dealing with the issue doesn't make the issue go away. Not dealing with the issue creates more trauma. And I'm sure that we all know of someone, if we haven't ourselves, who went through trauma of some sort during the pandemic. So, people lost their jobs, people lost their homes, and there was a loss of family members and close friends. I know that I lost a lot of family during the pandemic. Fortunately, it was family that I kind of knew of, maybe heard about growing up, but I didn't really know them. So it kind of took over from the edge. But just think about the people who did lose close ones, people who were close to them, people that were depending on, to be there, and they no longer are. So work goes from person to or in person to home indefinitely. Just think of that what happened. School goes from person to home indefinitely, and boundaries are completely screwed because so many people at the time, you always think of your home life as separate from work life. I go to work or go home after I leave work and on the weekends. And that's where I hang out because I don't want to have to mix home and work together because before 2020, that didn't make sense. Why would you have done that unless you were already working from home? So, and I know for kids especially, they again missing that social aspect that they were so used to, and those connections that they form while they were going to school in person. Now they're no longer having it. And kids had to play catch up from what was missed. Teachers are doing their best, but it's still an uphill battle for it. And Dr. Joseph also says that Dr. Joseph says next that if we do not process the trauma and continue to use the substances to decompress, we will never recover from the trauma. So let's think about that for a minute. Going back to what we said about the increase in binge drinking and forming those communities online. We were kind of just using that to I guess decompress from what was going on around us, to not have to deal with the fact that there was this crazy virus that was going around killing everybody. And for a lot of us, we never really got out of it. We kind of stayed into it. We still self-soothe, I call it. And a lot of times, like, when it comes to substances and, like drugs, alcohol, whatever you want to call it, even like food, even like, partying, even, being around people or whatever, or a lot of times we're using these things to mask what's really going on. And we think, oh, well, as long as I keep doing this, I don't have to deal with the fact that I'm feeling a certain way or I'm experiencing or this happened or that happened. And the reality of that is it doesn't make it any better, guys. You can't really substitute really healing and growth for momentary pleasure. Never give up what you really want out of life for something that you think you want right now, like that next drink or that next hit. I see it all the time. I've seen it in my life, with close friends that I've had before, the effects that drugs and alcohol has because of the fact that they repeatedly chose not to deal with the initial issue that was going on, the anxiety, the uncertainty, the maybe depression, whatever it is. You can't just cover it up and hope that it goes away. Again, it goes back to what I was saying, not talking about something doesn't make it go away. It just creates more trauma. And now you got more issues that you have to deal with because now you got this addiction or abuse in addition to what was already happening before that. So in this statement, it was just about the pandemic. What about other things in life that's causing trauma for you? So what has caused trauma for you? I know for me, it was explained to me, although I kind of knew it, but never really thought about it until it was broken down to me, that my economic upbringing. We weren't we weren't wealthy by any means. We weren't rich. We weren't very well off. We got by, I will say that. But there were a couple of Christmases where we didn't have, any presents. And there were things that I wanted as a kid that I saw my friends have, but I knew that we couldn't afford. So, as a result of it, and I've seen it before, I've heard of it before, that people grow up with these stigmas and it grows into other things. Like, I was watching an episode of the show called Hoarders. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen that show or not. If you haven't, anytime I need to clean up my house, I will put an episode or two of that on, and then boom, I am right there cleaning, straightening up, putting things back where it needs to go because I didn't want to get to the point where they had. But one of the episodes was a lady, she grew up, very poor. She didn't really have much at all. In fact, she didn't have anything. And she ended up having over $40,000 worth of credit card debt because of the fact that she kept buying things. She kept feeling like, oh, if I could buy this, then I could have something. Even though it was mostly clothes that she would never wear or things that she would never use, but she still got this, I guess, rush from, making those purchases. And as a result, it stacked up over time. And she had to make a decision on, okay, I got to get rid of all this stuff or I can, keep it here and I guess try and live my life the way I had before to see how well that works out. Fortunately, of course, with the show, she made the decision to get rid of some things. And it really hit home to me because I think about how often this happens with people. How often that, we grow up feeling like we don't have much or didn't really have much. And when we finally get a taste of it, we kind of go all for it. We wanted all of it. I want to get everything that I didn't have before. And as a result, we create more problems. Again, because we never really took time to tackle that initial problem. And, in this case, I'm pretty sure it was a situation where she had no idea what was going on. She hadn't talked to a, medically trained professional. She was just going on about life. And then this is kind of a, typical example of cause and effect. But what Dr. Joseph is saying here too is that, and she has the credibility to show the reasons why we're struggling, on our journey these past 5 years. And we have now what we have to do, we have no clue what's happening for us. So how can we begin the process, towards happiness? How can we go towards what happiness really is? Now, what does happiness mean to you? I really want to ask you that question because I want you to take a minute to think about what really makes you happy. When I think about happiness, I guess I was along the right lines with this, because I never really think of happiness as one moment in time. I remember when I finished my graduate studies. In fact, it was on graduation day, and I was, I went out to Olive Garden to have dinner, and I remember sitting in the car just thinking to myself, I feel nothing, like I feel numb. And you would think after finishing this, huge accomplishment that would took a lot of time and effort on my part, that I would be jumping up and down, just like ecstatic. But I remember, because I reached that point and never really thought about what happens after I reached that point, I kind of just felt numb, felt sad, even if you get down to it. And nowadays, I think of happiness as moments, like when I'm spending time with Christopher, he and I are making dinner and we have dinner and watch a movie before we go to bed. Or when I'm in an ensemble rehearsal, with my orchestra, and we're playing a piece I really like, and the section of the piece I really like, and I really warm up to that when I hear it, because of the fact that I know what it does to me. It's that moment that I'm going for. Or maybe working out. I know lately I've gotten back into going back to the gym and seeing the transformation now from where I was before to going back to the body that I had before the pandemic. It makes me happy. And there's just so many moments. And then of course, talking to a family that I haven't talked to in a while. It's like those moments really make me happy, and I really look forward to them, and I really embrace them when they come. But at the same time, I don't take it lightly. I don't take it lightly that, oh, I talked to my mom and okay, now I'm going to go back to doing what I'm doing, because how many more moments am I going to have to do that? And I know for a lot of us, we don't even know how to begin to define what happiness is, because of the fact that we feel like we've never really been happy. So I say take the moment to look at joy. Happiness to me is a series of joyful moments, from one moment to the next, to the next, to the next. And it doesn't have to be, back to back to back. Sometimes you have moments of, stress. Sometimes you have moments of maybe anxiety, or feeling like you have to do a bunch of stuff with it. But, at some point you're going to feel that joy again. You're going to get to that point that Dr. Joseph was explaining to us. Now, she did another neat thing too. Well, before we go into that, I'm gonna tell you about my pandemic story. Now, I know for a lot of us, the pandemic was really rough. It was really hard. People lost so many family members and friends that they thought were going to be there, and people lost their jobs, people lost their homes. People lost so much, and we had no clue what was going on. But I know for me personally, the pandemic was particularly joyous time, because of the fact that I bought my first house in June of 2020. That was an ordeal, being homeless technically for a month or so while I was waiting for it to close. That was interesting. Unfortunately, I had a really good friend who took me in and let me, crash at their place. My two of my best friends experienced the birth of their child that they were trying so hard to have before, and actually given up hope because it wasn't happening, it wasn't working out. And they were actually told, medically speaking, that they shouldn't try anymore. And then boom, here's a surprise. It's great. I also got to live with my best friend at the time. I when I moved into my house, and because of their situation, with the pandemic, they were in a 1-bedroom apartment trying to work from home. And it did not work out too well because of the fact that they couldn't separate that work life in a 1-bedroom apartment, setting. So boom, come live with me, come move in with me. And finally, after 2 years of waiting, we finally got to live together. And don't get me wrong, there were some downfalls too. Again, like I said, I lost a lot of family members. I did have a tremendous heartbreak during that time too. Someone that I fell for really hard, who didn't feel the same way, and had to deal with that. And I was exposed to the news, and when I wasn't at work, like I would go to work, and fortunately, first of all, I got to keep my job. Second of all, I still had to go in every day as if, it was normal because of the fact that the field that I was in was deemed essential. So I was an essential employee, but I still had to deal with a lot of the things that other people were dealing with, like the fact that a lot of people didn't think that the pandemic was real. And a lot of people didn't think they needed to wear a mask when they came inside the building. And a lot of people thought that, this was just a hoax. And that was kind of rough on me as well, especially after that, and then coming home and watching the news like I did, and then seeing how many people died that day, how many people still hospitalized, how many people were admitted, and not even knowing what I was doing to myself, just trying to keep up with what was going on, just trying to figure out what on earth is happening here. And it was traumatic for a lot of people. And Dr. Joseph says that, it's normal to have forgotten bits and pieces of 2020 because of the fact that that's what trauma does. Trauma forces us to block certain aspects of events. So think about 2020. Now, yeah, it was about 5 years ago now. Can you think of every single thing that happened in detail that year? I mean, yeah, it was a while ago, but it's because of the fact that there was so much going on, so much happening that our brains kind of blotted it out. So what she did was she came up with I'm going to share with you what she came up with. It was a test to see if you're happy or see what happiness means for you. And let me go back to it's called the Anhedonia rating scale here. You just agree or you disagree. And these are just some questions that you ask yourself to see where you are right now, just to kind of see what's going on with you. And the first one here says, I often make delayed future happiness statements such as, I will get X when I get X, I'll be happier. Kind of like what I said before. Do you agree or disagree? Number two, I find it hard resting or taking breaks because I feel restless, empty when I'm not busy. I know I kind of suffer for that just a little bit because I feel like I always have to be doing something. So funny, Christopher and I were watching a movie just last night before I was heading out of town. I was trying to spend some time with him before I left for the weekend. And the whole time that we were sitting there, doing what we were doing, I was just thinking about, okay, what about this person? Did I get back to them? Oh, maybe I need to look this up too. And now, of course, I have my phone with me with my, in my right hand, and it's really hard to feel. I'm not going to say I feel empty when I'm not busy, but I don't know when to stop being busy, pretty much. Number three, I rarely take the time to savor things. I can definitely relate to this too because I'm the type that always in such a hurry that when it's time to eat. In fact, again, last night we were having dinner and I got home and Christopher made these awesome burgers for us, and I pretty much inhaled mine. I don't even think I could tell you what it tastes like. And before I knew it, it was gone. And I have really been working on, for health reasons and for the sake of taking time to be in the moment, savoring what I'm eating, like taking a bite of something and chewing it slowly and carefully, strategically to get that flavor. And the example of this again, hurrying to finish the meal to get back to doing the task, which I always do because I'm usually eating in between meetings and appointments or whatever. And I really should take time to really savor things. Number four, I rarely enjoy reading for leisure. Now, this I never do because anytime I'm reading, it's always for a sense of learning. I'm always trying to learn something, or I'm always trying to figure something out, or I never read for pleasure, just for leisure, just for the sake of reading. And it's so funny because I think about when I was about 8 years old, there was this book that I would read over and over and over by Judy Blume. It's called Super Fudge. If you guys haven't heard of it, I just go out and get it, order it. Next time you have some time off of work, just read it. You can read the whole thing in a day probably. And I read that book so much when I was about that age that I almost had it memorized. I almost had the last chapter memorized. And of course, back then I was reading for leisure. It's for fun. And nowadays, like I said, I'm just usually reading to do research or reading to better myself, self-development, professional development. And when was the last time I actually read for leisure? Number five, when I take naps, I don't feel refreshed. That was not a problem for me because I rarely do take naps. But what I discovered when I was, in banking, I would go to lunch and I would learn to take these 20-minute power naps. Well, I would literally, I would get in my car, I would eat lunch in my car, turn on some music or whatever. Just gotta have some me time, and I'll set an alarm, usually about the last 20 minutes before I had to go back in. Just take a little siesta. Just kind of, take a little time out. And I realized that when I do that, take those little spurt naps or whatever, that when I wake up, I don't feel groggy or I don't feel even more tired because of the fact I didn't really give myself that much time to go into a deep sleep. I just gave myself about 20 minutes and I feel refreshed. And I do feel like, oh, I can finish out the rest of the day. So if you do have time to do this, especially if you have like an hour lunch break, I urge you to try it. Just kind of see what happens for yourself. Maybe we won't need that that caffeine pickup in the evening or late afternoon. Number 6, when I make an effort to dress up, I rarely enjoy the experience. Now I had to think about this one too, because again, I'm a guy, I don't really dress up that much unless it's something for work. I guess I'm going to a meeting or I'm going to, like I'm at a convention right now. So the next couple of days I'll be dressing up. But when was the last time you dressed up just to go to dinner? When was the last time you dressed up just to go out for the evening, something like that, and then really enjoy the experience of doing it? For you ladies, maybe enjoy the experience of putting on that dress and putting on your makeup, fixing your hair. And then, of course, for guys, when was the last time that brought out maybe your favorite pair of jeans or that favorite shirt that you like to wear out, and then really enjoyed it going through the process of putting it on, getting ready for that anticipation of what's about to come. Number 7, when others compliment me, I have a hard time accepting the praise. And I can understand why a lot of people will go through that one too, because it's easier to be modest and it's easier to be shy and to not give in and to think, oh, they're complimenting me, I'm just gonna say thank you and move on. And again, not accepting the praise. And maybe that's something we should work on. I know that's something I need to work on, is just accepting the praise and accepting the compliments and being proud of myself, just as much as the other person is for giving me that compliment. Because how many times do we take time to be proud of ourselves for what we've done, or what we are doing? Number 8, I have a difficult time enjoying social relationships with family and or friends. I don't have a problem with this one because I enjoy spending time with people that I'm with, especially in the moment. And I try to be in the moment with them. I enjoy having that social interaction and that anticipation before we get together. Oh, we're gonna meet with so and so, and I can't wait to get there. And feeling that. But for a lot of people, they may have difficult enjoying, or for a lot of you, I should say, you may have difficult enjoying social relationship with friends and or family. So let's think about what that means for you. Like, what is it? Is it the fact that you have anxiety when it comes to meeting with them for whatever reason? Is it because of the fact that you're depressed because of the fact you can't see them or be with them like you want to, or as often as you want to, or whatever it may be for you? Number 9, I find it hard to enjoy listening to music. Now, of course, I'm a musician as well. So this one was kind of weird for me because of the fact that when I do listen to music, a lot of the times it's classical music. I'm listening to a symphony or sonata, concerto, whatever, wherever craving I get at the time. But I think about this a lot with pop music, especially when I'm listening to music with Christopher. He'll put on these songs or whatever, and I'm just kind of like, yeah, it's okay. I'm not really feeling it right now. I say that a lot. I'm just not really feeling this. Like, of course, I don't say it to him, I say it to myself. And, why am I saying that? What's going on there? Why am I not taking time to, be in the moment, enjoy the moment? Maybe that's something I could take a look at for myself. Number 10. This one's kind of personal, but I'm going to, she threw it out there, so I'm going to throw it out there for you too. I have a difficult time enjoying physical intimacy or sexual behaviors. Now, that may be a thing for a lot of people, especially depending on what you're going through right now. If you are going through a time of down or what I call lower frequency, maybe you're not really enjoying these things as much as you have before, or as much as you feel like you should be. And we should take a look at that and see what's going on, what's causing you to not really enjoy the moments and not be present with it. And maybe you can't identify it right now, but it's at least something to think about for for future reference. 11. I really enjoy self-care activities like a warm bath or mani pedi. Now, for you manly guys out there, it could be more like a manly stuff, like dude stuff. See, what's a good example? I'm not into I do pedis for myself, but it's not really a self-soothing thing because it's something I feel like I have to do. But when was the last time we done something for ourselves that we really enjoy doing? Like for guys, maybe you've gone hunting or you've gone fishing, hung out with a buddy, tinkered around your garage on on something that you've been working on, some kind of project, and maybe you found that you're not really into those things anymore like you were. So that's something to think about again. Is this something that you're experiencing? Or maybe you don't know. Maybe you just haven't really taken time to ask yourself. Number 12, I rarely enjoy sweet, simple pleasures like a nice cup of coffee or tasting a delicious beverage. Again, for the manly guys, what guilty pleasure did you used to enjoy that maybe doesn't hit as hard anymore? Maybe that's some of the stuff that I said before. Or maybe you did used to like to, have a nice sip cup of coffee and, taste that delicious beverage. I know I'm a coffee lover. I love coffee. For one thing, it gets me going in the morning, and I kind of like having it in the afternoons too, when I allow myself to have it because it just gives me so much pleasure. I mean, I just love the taste of it, and I love the way it's mixed, and when I get that combination of the sweet and the cream just right within it, it's just one of those life simple pleasures. Number 13, I rarely enjoy beautiful things. Now, this one is so broad that I really have to ask, what does that mean to you? What does beautiful things mean to you? Maybe it's a sunset or a mountaintop, or maybe it's watching a piece of fruit grow on a tree, or watching flowers grow in the garden. What's beautiful? What's a beautiful thing for you that you used to enjoy that you don't enjoy so much anymore? uh, Again, as an artist, I try to really notice beautiful things and take pleasure in seeing it and really acknowledging it because of the fact that it's there. And a lot of times we miss it because again, we're so busy going about our day, going about our schedule, that we don't take time to notice these beautiful things. Number 12, I guess that's number 13. Yeah. Number 14, I have a hard time enjoying the work I produce because I feel it's not good enough. Now, I'm pretty sure that all of us can relate to this because of the fact that, we've had so much pressure on us, and it's really hard for us to enjoy the work that we're doing. And, you always feel like it's not good enough. Plus, think about, and I had this thought too earlier when I was typing through these notes before I was typing them out, that again, I go back to school. I go back to how many times did you put your heart and soul into a project or something like at school, and then you go to school, turn it in or whatever, and then your teacher or professor or whatever just rips it apart. Just like says, "Oh my God, this is awful. This is horrible." At least made you think that it was hard, it was awful, it was horrible, and just think of how it made you feel. They will really make you feel like the next time that person assigned the project for you that you were going to be as gung-ho about it as you were the first time, because you feel it's not good enough. You conditioned to believe that it was not good enough. And that's when you have to go back to taking what I was saying about taking pleasure in the little things. So when you did work really hard on something, and you know that you work hard, and you know when you just thrown it together because it was due, and you kind of know the difference. But when did you really work on something really hard that really set with you? And you really felt good about it, even if people around you didn't. And I think that we should take more time for these moments too, because of the fact that, again, it goes back to praising ourselves and praising our own work. Okay. And number 15, the last one, even if I'm producing at high levels, I have a hard time enjoying them. Goes back to number 14. Whenever you are achieving high, you just can't be in the moment. You can't enjoy it. You can't have fun with it. And that's so unfortunate because of the fact that, we work hard, and you deserve to have that praise and recognition from yourself before anyone else. Again, it goes back to that Power episode. What I would say, you should be your own biggest cheerleader. You should be rooting for yourself and not seeking that external validation towards being happy. I think happiness is definitely internal. It's something that you have to do for yourself, inside of yourself, before you can really feel it. Then again, express it to other people. How can you make other people happy if you're not happy yourself? And a lot of times we think, oh, well, just being with them and being around them, for them loving the things that they love about me, that makes them happy. But are they really happy in the end if you're not happy? And think about that for a second. Let that resonate just for a moment. And Dr. Joesph also says that having this rating scale. She has this rating scale on her website if you really wanted to dig deep into it, and maybe some of the other things she has to offer too. And the scale is made up of points of joy, kind of like I was saying, just moments. She explained that most people draw a picture of what happiness will look like for them when dot dot dot, like when they achieve that one thing, or uh, they finally got that job that they wanted, or the house or the car. And the reality is, how can we be happy with today? What can you do to be happy starting today? How can we be more happy with our lives and with the way that things are going? And that's the question that we kind of have to ask ourselves, because it's going to be different from each one of us. Like I said, for me, I try to find pleasure in little things that's happening. For instance, I knew I was taking this trip here to San Jose, and I saw that my flight was leaving at 6 a.m. And I was really excited about that because I love early flights, because that means I get there early, where I'm going early, and I don't have to rush around. Like I got here at with the time difference, I got here around 9 o'clock this morning, and I had all day to do whatever I needed to do. So what did I do? I just took my time. I just took my time, left the airport, went over to where we're having our event this weekend, looked around so I can, pinpoint exactly how we're going to get in and out. When people start arriving, what's the best way to get in? What time should we get there before the crowd hits? Where the bathrooms are. Believe it or not, that's really important, because especially when you're with a lot of people, with a team of people, you want them to be able to go when they have to and know where to go and not get lost. And of course, I went from there to my hotel, and boom, I was able to check in early. I thought that I couldn't check in until at least noon at the earliest, and I was able to check in at 11. And again, it gives me another whole hour to play around with. And right now, I'm just hanging out in my room, get ready to go meet another teammate at the airport here in a little while, and I get to hang out with you guys for a while and get to do this podcast. I was really worried about it. I was like, am I even going to be able to put a podcast up this week with so much going on for me traveling, going back and forth? And looks like I was able to. So, Dr. Joesph says that the way to get back to that state of enjoyment is by focusing on those simple pleasures. So that only comes from me, also comes from a board certified doctor. And and I was telling you about when I was talking to my parents about when I discovered that one of the best joys in life is enjoying the little things. I mean, you really have to take time to enjoy those little things, because if you take the time to enjoy the little things, then when the big things happen, it just means that much more. And you can be that much more appreciative of it. And then, of course, the universe is going to recognize that. It's going to continue to allow great things to happen to you, because you know how to appreciate things, and you know how to appreciate, you know how to generate that energy around you. So, in conclusion, no final thoughts. There are, I'm trying to read my own handwriting here. So out there's a sense of having happiness when it's focused on more pleasurable moments. And what can you be happy for right now? So what kind of pleasurable moment can you have with yourself right now to truly be happy and to truly have that what you mean? So as we go forth through this week, let's think about what happiness really is and what it really looks like for you. Is it really, getting that material possession, or is it really attaining that position, or is it the little things like, watching the flower grow, watching the sunset? I really love that. Watching the sunrise. That's something I really learned to embrace now that I'm trying to get up early in the morning. I'm usually up before the sun, so I really like taking time to watch it come up over the horizon, and then see what happiness like that really means for you. So that's all I have for you today, guys. That's all I wanted to talk about, was just different ways of how can we be happier and live that life of positivity that we talk about. So I'm going to end with this. Thank you for joining me to the end of this episode. Hope to bring you positive content each week to help you help your week get off to a better start. And while learning the world of podcasting, of course, episodes will get increasingly. And I'm even thinking already, thinking of people I want to bring in to, bring you more content. So maybe make it more interactive with people. And I want to end with this. The highest consciousness of me believes in the highest consciousness of you. I believe in you, and I believe that you have the power to be happy. And I think you have the power, and I believe that you have the power to find those things in life that truly makes you happy. You know, I had this saying when I was in high school. I always say, yeah, do what makes you happy. Do what makes you happy. Because tell that to a teenager and see how they take that. But I would tell my friends that do what makes you happy. But at the end of the act or at the end of the day, make sure that you're really happy and not just, creating some illusion of what you thought it would be. So if you have any suggestions for future shows, or if there's anything that you'd like to know more about in detail, please write into the Positively Living Podcast at outlook.com. You can also find us on Instagram or X, formerly known as Twitter. This podcast was created to offer advice for living a happier life. If you feel that you're in a state where you need serious help, I strongly encourage you to speak with a properly trained professional immediately. And one more thing, the Positively Living Podcast is currently supported by IMP Solutions, your one-stop shop for your financial needs. Thank you for joining me. Have a good rest of the week.